Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Torcom Talk. Today we're super excited to bring on 4-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl winning champion, Drew Bledsoe. In our conversation, we ended up covering a lot of different things. A lot of the main value that I think you guys are going to get the most out of is Drew telling us how he's made sure that his business is always planned for the worst and how he hasn't gone out of business, so you can apply it to yourselves, whether it's to your business or actually to your bank accounts if you're not an owner of a company. Talked a lot about football analogies on being a quarterback compared to being a business owner, and also gotten a lot about self-awareness and knowing like what are you the best at and going all in on that, and knowing what team members that you have and what they're good at and making sure they're doing that. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. We even got in depth on the big hit that ended up happening to him, where it knocked him out, almost killed him, that brought in Tom Brady, and how he was able to overcome that mentally. So please enjoy this wide-ranging conversation between me and Drew Bledsoe. So, going into what I was curious about is this.
Yeah, there we go. I like the sound of that.
This is
One of my favorite,
this is your
favorite,
company.
One of my favorite sounds in the world. That cork being popped.
Yeah.
Love it.
So this is your company, Doubleback.
Yeah.
And one thing that is not a normal transition is football to wine.
Right.
So how did that happen?
I tell people in the short version, it was a combination of fear and passion. The fear part, when the stats around retiring athletes are pretty scary. Some like 70% of athletes have some sort of financial distress, marital distress, substance abuse, some sort of problem within 3 years of retirement. So that was the fear part. I didn't want to be one of those statistics. The commonality I saw with athletes that successfully navigated that transition is they had something else to do, something to throw themselves into, some place to apply that passion and work ethic and discipline and all those things that allowed them to be successful in football. And then the passion part was we really like wine.
Right.
And so the magic confluence of events for us, though, was we really like wine. The more I learned about it, the more intriguing it became. But the little town I grew up in, Walla Walla, Washington, while I was off playing ball, it became known as one of the great grape growing regions of the world. So I was able to go back home to my hometown,
Right.
and start a business that quite honestly we feel like competes with any wine business in the world. And we really feel like our valley is producing some of the very best fruit in the world, and then we try to be responsible stewards of that fruit.
So what was going through your mind when you were like, okay, I'm going to start a winery? I mean, you made a hell of a wine. This is This is the wine that I reserve for like special dates and good friends that are coming over and stuff like that. This isn't just wine I have to myself when I have it. So this is for a special occasion. It's
you can still have you can still have it for breakfast. I mean, that's fine. We encourage that behavior.
Right. So so I'm having it for super nice events because it is a super good wine, and it's not the least expensive thing in the world. Depends what income bracket you fall into. Coming around like $90, $100 a bottle.
Right.
But it's worth every drop of it. But how do you go about being like, okay, I'm a quarterback in the NFL, and now I'm going to go into winemaking? How do you find people that are going to help you become a great winery?
Yeah, well, you hit on the most important piece. That's finding the right people. And I had a significant advantage in going back to my hometown. I was able to hire my next door neighbor growing up to be our first winemaker.
He's still with you today?
No, he's not. His protege has taken over now for us, and I think has actually even taken us to higher places, which is cool. But Chris Figgins, who was our first winemaker, his dad started what ultimately became the first quote-unquote cult wine ever in Washington, Leonetti Cellars. And they were our next door neighbors growing up. I had no idea they were there, by the way. I knew Chris Figgins, had no idea what Leonetti was, didn't care about wine. Pardon me. But as I started to develop a passion for wine, this Leonetti became this one of my favorite wines in the world, and it was from my hometown. And Chris was making that wine. So when we set out on
it made it an easy target then.
Well, to be honest with you, I had no concept that he would ever consider working for anybody outside of his own family. But we got set up on a blind date by his cousin, who was a friend of mine, and we went and had lunch at Subway of all places. And we're sitting there, and I'm talking to Chris, and I just wanted to pick his brain. I mean, this guy's winemaking superhero in my mind. So I sat down, and I just thought I was going to learn a little bit something from, learn a little something from him. But as we were going through the conversation, I quickly figured out that he was actually considering doing some consulting outside of the family. I was like, well, shit, man. This guy, if I was going to make a list of the most desirable winemakers, he would have occupied probably the top 5 spots.
Wow.
Because he's in my hometown. He's world renowned. He's extremely talented. And so I was like, okay, well, I got to step up my game and convince this kid to go to work for me. I call him a kid. He's 2 years younger than I am. Sure enough, I was able to convince him to become our winemaker, and that was pivotal in the success of what we were trying to do. Was to have somebody with that kind of experience, that kind of pedigree.
Where would he be? So we've had this discussion before, the comparisons of being a quarterback and a business owner. And I really, really like how you draw this out. So where would he be as far as, like, if you were to make the analogy on your football team?
Yeah. So really different. So and now Josh McDaniels now falls into that role now, and he's been fantastic. Which kind of a funny side note, Josh McDaniels also happens to be the name of the offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots. So
okay.
Any
relationship?
No relationship whatsoever. But my Josh, the winemaker, just as a side note, our Josh, our winemaker, he gets trolled on social media all the time, like he's the coordinator. Like when the coordinator, the football Josh McDaniels, he agreed to be the head coach of the Colts, and then backed out at the 11th hour after he'd accepted the job. Well, the winemaker Josh McDaniels on Twitter just started getting crushed. I mean, these people are like want to kill him, right? They're just like, I wouldn't piss off on you if you're on fire, I mean, they were so mad at him. And so the winemaker Josh, he came to me, he goes, man, you wouldn't believe how mean these people are. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm glad I wasn't playing in the era of social media. It would have been rough. But anyway, back to answer your question.
Sounds like he'd be your offensive coordinator.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, it's actually so if I were to take it and put it in a football analogy, in a football organization, I would be the owner, general manager. Right. So I write all the checks, and I decide what the vision is. Sure. In this case, for the winery, as the owner and general manager would for the football team, and then Josh is head coach and quarterback. And so he takes all the vision and actually puts it into action, and then we've got a fantastic, very small but fantastic team around him that allows us to continue to be successful.
And so when it comes to, like, your analogies to leadership and being a quarterback, I was fascinated if you could elaborate on a bit of, if you recall talking on you being the quarterback for teams, for whether it's in the NFL or Washington State, and you basically have people coming from all sorts of different cultures, and how you manage that and how you compare that to business.
Yeah. Playing professional football, and I've challenged people on this before, and nobody's come up with a better one. I think it's the most diverse group of people in one setting together that has to work toward a common goal. You got people from the inner city with bullets flying around. You got a quarterback from Walla Walla, Washington. You got an offensive lineman from Max Lane, who blocked for me for a number of years. He's from Norburn, Missouri, which is a town so small. When we played the Chiefs, they canceled church because everybody was going to go watch Max play, right? and so you get these guys that grew up so differently and have such different experiences, but you have to work together toward a common goal, and it's a really interesting equation to try to put together. Really magic when it works. But then the parallels between playing quarterback and running a business, they exist all day, every day. There's a reason that all of these football cliches make their way into business, right? Like, hey, I need you to quarterback this project for me. We got to stick to our blocking and tackling. We got to get this one across the goal line. Hey, we're in the red zone here. Let's get this going. And I think a lot of people use those in business and don't even realize that they're talking about football.
Yeah, and I think also like when you're talking about dealing with somebody from Missouri and then inner city bullets flying around, it shows even if like in Bend, Oregon, or in Walla Walla, if you're hiring everybody that's mostly like from that area, they still are different personalities, right? And to treat everyone the same and be like, oh, they'll respond nicely the same way that Lisa did when I approach her this way because that's just the way it is. But Max doesn't think that way.
Right.
And so that's why I think is one of the keys to your success is you're being able to read people as you had to read them in Washington State, because I'm sure you had people coming from all across the Northwest. And then you were just talking about the Patriots. I mean, all over the place.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you have to understand, different people are motivated by different things. Some people need a hug, some people need a kick in the ass. And sometimes, different people need different things on different days. But trying to understand that, and then also, it's really, really important. It was important in ball and certainly important in business. Before you're critical of somebody, you got to understand where they're coming from. And I knew that, and also coaching football now at the high school level. You're going to go jump somebody's ass for screwing up. Well, you first better understand what's going on at home. Did their, in the high school setting, did their girlfriend just break up with them? And at work, is there something going on in their home life that's showing up and so, you really have to understand where they are in their life before you try to coach and motivate them. And then you just have to understand their personality. But there are sort of some, to me, some universal leadership truths though that you have to acknowledge. Number one, you got to have mutual trust and respect across the board, and that can transcend whether you actually even like somebody. If you may not have a ton in common, but if you have good mutual respect and trust, then you can work together effectively. That's universally true. One thing that I definitely found that's a direct translation from football into business. I was a quarterback. If you'd asked me to play left tackle, man, I would have tried my ass off, but we would have been really awful. And same deal. If I'd asked Max Lane to come play quarterback, man, he would have tried really hard, but we would have really sucked.
Sure.
And in business, it's the same thing.
Being self-aware of your strengths and
be aware of your strengths. You play into your strengths. And for our employees, I feel one of my most important roles as the owner and essentially the board of directors for our business is to make sure that I'm using our team in the highest and most valuable way that I can for their skill set. For example, we have a couple of ladies that work for us, and their big gift, and it's maybe the most important thing outside of making good wine in our business, but their biggest gift is their personal relationship skills with our customers. And so, I don't want Anne, for example, I don't want her bogged down in the minutia of bookkeeping and inventory. I want her on the phone talking to our customers whenever and as much as possible. And she's great at it, and they love her. So having having her doing some mundane task that's less important is counterintuitive to our business.
So play to your team members' strengths. And one thing that you're saying that it's actually rare that I run across entrepreneurs that have said this. It's something that I try to work on every day, but showing empathy to your team members too. Right? Like when you were saying like relate, like what's going on at home. People don't mean to screw up. Like, hey, your numbers are down 3 quarters in a row.
Right.
Are they meaning to do that? Most likely not. They might be going through a divorce, or there could be all sorts of things happening.
Yeah. Well, what things are in play, what things are affecting them, and but then they're also along with that, one of the most important things is empowerment, and I try to at every turn empower our team and let them know how much I trust them, and give them a great degree of autonomy, to do their job. And a lot of times what I've found, because we have a really great group, if I give them broad direction and then get the hell out of the way, a lot of times they'll do it better than I would have instructed them to do it.
Yeah, just let them figure it out on their own. It's kind of like, to go back to the football analogy, if you're you're basically saying you trust them, so you delegate to them.
Mm-hmm.
And for that being said, you're able to grow. They're able to do other things that you're not able to do. Because if you just think that you can do everything, then you're going to be the quarterback running the ball instead of handing it off.
Yeah,
And Drew, you're good with your arm, but I don't think you're that good with
that
your
doesn't work.
legs.
That doesn't work very well. It's not a good recipe for success, you know.
Yeah, so you're
And,
delegating
yeah,
the ball
yeah.
to the running back, and you're like,
Yeah.
take it, I trust you.
Yeah, take it. I trust you. Go make something happen. And our team really functions very, very well that way. As long as they're in their proper briar patch, right?
Right.
You
They have
know?
to be you have to hold accountability.
And we also, the other thing that we do, and they know this, there are times when they have to wear multiple hats. We're a small business.
Sure.
You know. And one of the things that I enjoy the most about our team, outside of the fact that they're just really funny and fun to be around, that they all are versatile that way. You know, so there may be times where, you know, Joe, who's more boots on the ground, back there making wine, following Josh's instruction and doing the grunt labor. If we have an event and he has to go out front and sell, he can actually go do that. You know?
Good.
And we work on it and we talk about it and so on. And so we do ask them to cross over a little bit sometimes, and have some versatility, but as long as we try to keep them mostly in their primary areas of competence, the better we function.
So one thing I'm also curious on with your team, and what I realized is that in Doubleback you started in 2007.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's right when the economy got hit hard.
Yeah.
I started this company in Mazama Media in 2013, so I've yet to be punched in the mouth. I've yet to take one right across the jaw.
Yeah.
You got punched in the mouth right when you opened your doors. So how did you get through it?
Well, it's a huge advantage launching a business in that environment. You go look, then there's actually.
I would think the opposite, because you're selling high-end wine.
Yeah, no, so you go look. There's a list that you can go find of businesses that were started in a recession or a depression.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them are the biggest, most successful companies in the world. It's like Johnson & Johnson, and like it's a cool list to go look at.
I'll have to check that out.
But the reason that's so hugely important is that if you launch into a roaring economy,
Mm-hmm.
you can be sloppy and get away with it.
Right. Everyone's making money right now.
Yeah, everybody's
like
making
right now. Everyone's making money. Like
I
if
mean,
you
it's
can't win right now, you suck.
Yeah, and I mean, my last football season was 2006, and so we moved here full time to start.
Was that with the Cowboys?
With the Cowboys, yeah. So we moved to Bend, Oregon, full time,
Mm-hmm.
starting in 2007.
And what made you come to Bend and not go to Walla
Oh,
Walla?
all the reasons
Bachelor.
all the reasons that everybody comes here. We like to ski and
Yeah.
golf and bike, and we like
Sure.
sunshine. But the reason that we've stayed
We'll
here,
edit all that out.
yeah, no,
podcast, so we
actually,
don't get more people.
don't come to Bend. It sucks.
Bend sucks. Don't move here.
Bend sucks. Don't move here. We got transferred here for work and we hate it. But when we first moved to Bend in 2007,
It was really bad here.
everybody was retired. It
Yeah.
was like like if you wanted to play golf on a Tuesday, you sent out an email and everybody could just show up at noon on a Tuesday, and everybody was a genius because they were making money hand over fist, and everybody was in real estate.
Yeah.
And we'd be on the golf course. We're like, yeah, no, send that over to Marititle, and we'll sign the docs and move on. Anyway, hey, what hole are we on?
Mm-hmm.
And then it just went sideways.
Yeah.
And
And
all
Bend
of it,
was bad. Bend
yeah,
was-
no, it went from the peak to the bottom. When you launch a business into that environment, you have to do everything right.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot let anything slide. You've got to be, in the wine business, obviously the juice in the bottle has to be excellent, but your package has to be right. Your story has to be right. All your marketing materials have to be right. You
Yeah,
have to
of
build
course.
a connection with your customers.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do all of these things. By launching a business into that kind of environment, and by having to start your business in that, it builds a discipline in your business from the outset that's a lot harder to accomplish if everything's easy.
Mm-hmm.
If everything's easy when you start, you can get really sloppy, and it's hard then to go back and build discipline in if you didn't have it at the start. But by starting a business in that kind of economic environment, we were really conscious of every last aspect of the business, and it still exists that way in our business today. So it was a real advantage. Plus, we started really small. We only made 600 cases of wine the first year, so we didn't have to work real hard to sell those.
So what's your advice then for to me and other entrepreneurs like myself who didn't start their company during a recession, and whether it's somebody that's thinking about starting a business that's listening to this podcast that's looking to start it now, which obviously is not a recession, we're in a boom, or somebody who started it like myself since everything bounced back, which is basically 2011, 12-ish and on, and we're just kind of going on, and things are growing and things are good.
My best advice, and we're doing this with our wine business now, because really since we launched, the economy's been going up.
Right.
So we really have been pretty beneficial of a good economy, even though we launched into a bad one. The best piece of advice that I would give anybody that's doing that is you better have a rainy day plan. You better be ready to execute a recession plan.
So be cash positive.
Have a strong balance sheet. Have other strategies. For how you're going to navigate through a down economy. So specific to our business, we launched a sister winery that has lower price wines. What's easier to eliminate in a recession than expensive wine, right?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, people drink more in a recession. They just drink less expensive, right? You go talk to somebody at the one of the distributors. You talk to somebody at the liquor store, and when the economy was really bad, their volume was up,
right?
But people are drinking from the bottom shelf instead of the top shelf,
right?
And so we've built some lower price brands, and we're actually planning for even another one, so that if we had to, we could push production into a less expensive brand, and then just let the Doubleback sit and wait for a few years until we're right. We also are making sure that our balance sheet is strong so that we can weather a storm. We're building a nice little buffer that can allow us to weather a storm for a year or two if we have to. But then on top of that, we've never grown all the way into our demand with Doubleback.
Right.
The wine right now, if I had to,
you do that on purpose.
Yeah. Right now, I truly don't have any wine to sell you right now. We've got some Flying Bee Cabernet that's available currently, and that's the only wine that we have to sell right now. And so, with that, that's sort of something that allows me to sleep. One of the things that allows me to sleep at night is that we've got excess demand for the wine,
right?
And we would like to keep it there forever. There's an obvious tendency to think, oh, well, we've got demand, we better grow into that and see how much money we can make right now. Well, you do that, and then all of a sudden your market's saturated, and the minute the economy takes a little bit of a slide, now you're stuck sitting on inventory, and nobody wants to sit on inventory. That's not a good business model. So, we're conscious of that, and that would be the advice I would give to anybody that has started a business recently or is looking to start a business, is that you better have your doomsday plan.
Right.
And you should stress.
Don't think it's going to be a gravy train the whole time.
And you should also, and you should stress test it. And by that I mean you need to have a financial model, and you need to figure out what breaks it and kills your business.
Interesting.
So you build a financial model like, okay, at what sales level do we become cash flow negative? And if we are, how long can we withstand that? Right? And if that number isn't like significantly below where you are right now, where you can still survive, you better start working on a plan.
Right.
Because at some point, I mean, it's cyclical. Now, I hope we never go through one like we did in, 2008.
Yeah.
Nobody ever wants to do that again, but it is going to turn down at some point.
Right.
And, everybody that claims to have a crystal ball is lying. you talk to the smart financial guys, and they'll all tell you, like, yeah, I mean, it's going to turn down at some point, but it could be 2 weeks from now, or it could be 4 years from now.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Nobody freaking knows. We just play.
Yeah,
play as best we can.
I do love the guys though that got lucky and like, yeah, no, I called the last recession, told you it was going to happen. I'm like, yeah, good job, man. You certainly called that, but you were just one of the lucky ones. So good job.
Yeah. I mean, how many other ones did you call before that? Did you also
exactly?
say this guy was gonna fall in 05
yeah,
and
like,
01?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. No, it's there's a great quote that I just read recently. It was God, what was it? It was something on the economy. God, I'm gonna drop the ball, but it was like the market correction correctly predicted 9 out of the last 5 recessions, right? And so it's like, oh, the sky is falling. Well, yeah, half the time that was right, and the other half of the time, it was you were Chicken Little.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Nobody has a. Nobody
But
has
the punchline though is that you have to have a plan for when it happens, because it will happen.
Right.
And anybody that thinks it won't happen is destined for failure.
Yeah, and they're going to be like, if they have a business up and running, and if it's going well, and if they're not thinking that way, then they're going to be working for Bank of America.
Yeah, right. Well,
like,
and by the way, I mean, hey, if the next recession never comes, you still have a strong balance sheet and a good plan that allows you to sleep at night.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was just at a business class with one of the smartest guys in Bend, with Rod Ray, who's teaching a business leadership class, and when the recession hit and when they had their problems at Bend Research, they had a balance sheet that allowed them to exist for 3 years while they worked their way out of it, and they ultimately worked their way out of it and became a fabulously valuable company.
Sure.
But I asked him the question, is like, did you do that on purpose? He said yes. I learned from my dad and my grandfather that your balance sheet is what's going to allow you to survive.
That's really interesting, because our balance sheet can allow us to survive for a year. Mm-hmm. So I need to times that by 3 is my main takeaway here. Another thing, though, for me personally, is I actually can't really wait a bit for a recession.
Yeah, right.
Because when it comes to what we're doing here, when it comes to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube pre-roll, all these different things, it's like $4 CPMs. Like, so your cost to get in front of a person is $4 per 1,000 impressions. Mm-hmm. Now, if you were to take that and compare it to TV, radio,
right,
that's more like $10 to $15 CPMs.
Right.
Newspaper nobody reads anymore.
Right.
So
Right.
all of a sudden you have like dealerships and other companies that are all putting their money there, and then when they need to get really conservative and make the right play of their money, that's when I'm like, hey, I'm here to rescue you. So I'm in a way like.
Well, I mean, honestly, that's the magic of having that plan, is that if you have a recession plan, then you almost look forward to it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, well,
I got the pitch ready and everything.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
like, hey,
in our world, a recession with a strong balance sheet means that we go acquire more land for cheap.
Right.
And do that. But if you have too much debt and you don't have a strong balance sheet and the recession comes, you can't withstand that, and you can't view it as an opportunity. But if you build it properly, then an economic downturn is an opportunity that you're waiting for and looking forward to.
That's exactly what I'm waiting for too when it comes to property. You hit I'm just like, what's going on in our economy right now in Bend, it's insane. Like I'm not.
Yeah, well, and it's across the U.S. I mean, shoot, Seattle, Portland.
Bay Area.
The Bay Area is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you look at it, and I remember there were a few warning signs that I did see right before the last one hit, and I just,
what were they?
Kind of wasn't paying attention. Well, there were a couple that I won't go into that were. It's like these really smart guys that basically told me, this is not coming, and I just go, oh, that's interesting. But the funny one is like, oh, when the guy mowing your lawn all of a sudden becomes a developer, you're like, okay, this might be a little frothy, and all of a sudden the guy's not showing up anymore because he's become a developer because money's free and all that.
Right.
Like, okay, shit, that should have been a warning sign.
Well, speaking of like going through recessions and whatnot, what do you think has been the number one failure that you had to overcome, whether it's football or business? that you've learned from? Because I personally like failure. I'm like, that's a learning experience, and now I know how to not do something.
Yeah. It's a great quote that Rod had right when we started his deal. It was, good decisions come from experience, and most of experience comes from bad decisions, which I think is I think it's a Mark Twain quote. I don't know, I'll have to look at it, but it's pretty
That's
fun.
great.
You know, we've had some mistakes business wise. Thankfully, not too many. But I made one bad decision when the Canadian dollar went way down. We had a Canadian distributor kick back a bunch of wine, and rather than just sitting on it, we decided to just go push it out to one of these online, discount retailers.
Mm-hmm.
And then they pushed it out on the market at a price that really undercut our retail price, and pissed a bunch of people off. Now it was nice because it was just, we turned inventory into cash real quick, and we survived it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one of those mistakes, like, okay, that was a colossal mistake. We can't ever undercut our price and piss off our customer base. So wouldn't
So
do
now,
that.
Whenever that comes up, you just automatically just kibosh
Well,
it.
now thankfully it hasn't come up again, which is good because the demand has continued to grow.
Right.
But if that did come up again, now we would just hold that wine back and sit on it for a couple of years until we moved it, rather than make that mistake again.
Well, then it becomes more valuable, right? Because it's been
because it's been aged longer.
Yeah,
So yeah,
exactly.
we would have, and I would, what makes me even more angry about that mistake is, man, I would kill to have that
wine back.
That wine back.
Yeah.
Well, we wouldn't have it. We would have sold it by now.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had that library wine in our inventory that I could charge a bunch for, man, that'd be great to have right now. But so it was a mistake. So we won't do that again. And then outside of that, there are little hiccups here and there. But one of the lessons I did learn is we had to fire somebody, which was
That always sucks.
It was my first time
Firing someone?
as an employer, hiring somebody. Well, it was first time firing somebody that had been with us for a long time, been a key person. But one of the pieces of advice that I got that ended up being very, very true was that the minute you realize that there is a need for change, you need to make that change immediately,
because otherwise it just sinks in you.
Yeah,
And you're just sitting around like, I really need to do that with this person. It turns out it was the best thing for them too.
Yeah, exactly. And generally, if there's somebody on your team that that's it's not performing, that you feel like you need to move on from, generally they're not happy at their job either.
No.
And so it's better.
A lot of times they're cancer too. They're going around and they're talking
one of the things
gossip, just negative gossip, and it swirls and you just have to cut that snake off by the head. It sucks, but you got to do it.
I think the biggest inequity that I've seen that's the same in football as it is in business. In order to have strong and positive culture in your team or your business, it takes everybody. And the inequality is that one person can tear it down, whether that's a football team or a business. You get one negative, cancerous person in your organization, they can tear down the culture of your entire organization.
I've been through it.
Yeah,
I've been through it. Yeah,
and it's not fair.
No,
it's like
not.
shit. You can have on a football team, you can have 60 guys that are going in the right direction, that are team guys that are going. And one dude can tear it down, and in a business, it's the same way.
That's why you see like those high-profile wide receivers sometimes all of a sudden getting traded away. And they're like, the numbers were great. And it's like, well, you don't know what's going on in the locker room. They're tearing the team apart.
It's like the positive flashy plays are never worth the negative yardage.
Within the locker room.
Within the locker room,
and that happens a lot in sales and businesses, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, hey, you have this all-time performer, but guess what? He's like a lone wolf, his way or the highway, and you put up with it just because he's bringing in the revenue.
The numbers are good. The numbers are good, but next thing you know, you got other employees that are going to quit rather than keep working with that person,
or they hate coming to work too now.
Yeah,
when before they liked it.
Yeah, no, it was amazing when we finally made that decision. Our numbers were flat year over year, and in the 3 months following, we went from flat to 35% up.
Jeez.
Year over year.
Flat to 35%. Okay, takeaway. If you have somebody in your business who you know is cancerous, but you're not doing anything about it, do something about it now. It's been hitting you. It's been killing you for the past month, 2-3 months, however long it is. And when you actually do make this decision, for me personally, it's 24 hours beforehand of stress and about 5 to 12 hours after of okay, it was done, and then it's over.
Yeah, and then it's over and it's done,
and everything all of a sudden goes back to normal.
Yeah. No, it's and I got great counsel for how to actually do that, because like I said, I'd never done it before. And so if you're out there and you have to do this, the 2 pieces of advice: number 1, you say as little as possible.
Yes.
And you don't and you don't enter into a discussion about it.
Yeah.
It's done. It's over. You rip the Band-Aid off.
Also,
and
have the check ready.
Have the check ready,
Mm-hmm.
and then you also have to make sure that you have a witness.
Right.
So you have to have you can't be by yourself in the room when you do that. You have to have somebody with you, and that person is forbidden from speaking. They're just simply a witness, and so. Yeah, I had to do it. It was uncomfortable. Didn't like it. It was somebody that had been pivotal to our business, but it just had gone the wrong way. Yeah. And had to do it, and I hated it, and
Yeah.
And we still don't speak, but it was absolutely necessary.
And for everybody listening right now, Drew and I are not saying go and fire everybody. We're just saying when you do need to do it to a specific person and you know who it is, then just do it. Have the check ready. And be able to get ready to grow your business again. It's going to suck for a combined total of 32 hours, and then you're going to be over it.
Yeah, and they're going to be over it, and they're going to be happier. And it's just and thankfully,
it's easier said than done, though, right?
It's way easier said than done.
Yeah,
because it's change is hard no matter what.
Whenever I have to do it, I freak out.
Yeah, and it's I mean, it's like it's way hard, and it's not like and it can't be something where well, Joey had a bad day, so I'm going to fire him. No, it's not. That's not how it works.
Not at all.
No, this is something where you've observed a pattern of behavior for a long time.
I personally work with the person, and I try to turn it around.
Yeah, and you work with them, and you talk to them, and you work through whatever changes you need, and you give them plenty of opportunity to address the issue, and then if it doesn't change, then you have to make the move.
One thing I'm really surprised about, we have. Met together, hung out around a dozen times, and there's no ego that goes around with you. Here's the facts. Facts is that Drew, you are probably Ben's biggest celebrity. You do not act like that. When you first came in, I was worried about all sorts of different stuff. One thing I was worried about, and this was another thing I was impressed about, was okay, when Drew first came to our office, should we have a Patriots flag up? And so we weren't really sure.
Maybe a Cougar flag. Yeah. Patriots fired me and went with that slappy backup quarterback of mine.
Oh yeah, Tom Brady. Who's he?
What's he ever done?
But
disrespectful backup. Yeah.
But so you went. So basically, you brought the Patriots from a joke to respectable, making the playoffs. You then take a huge hit.
Yeah.
You go out, Tom Brady ends up being discovered. The rest is history there. But you did not say, what is that Patriots flag doing here? You instead say, I love the Patriots.
Oh, absolutely.
It was awesome. You gave the team member who was – so what our strategy ended up being okay, we're going to put it over our employee's chair who's from Boston.
Oh, right.
And then Mariel is going to have it on her chair, and so that the company's not at fault, but it's Mariel. And you were right away I love the Patriots, and gave her a hug and everything.
And by the way, she's a sweetheart too, so it was easy. And
she loves wine.
Yeah. Well, the truth is,
how do you walk away from that basically with basically the type of modesty that you have, and you don't a lot of people would have a grudge on their shoulder for the rest of their life, but you don't show that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's important, just in living a quality life, one of the most important attributes I think you can have is gratitude. Mm-hmm. Man, I'm so grateful I got to play NFL football. Man, you
did a damn good job at it too.
Oh hell yeah, no! I mean, I was in the top 10 in all those statistical categories when I left, and I it wasn't perfect, but man, it was cool, and I'm so grateful I got to do that. And was it perfect? No, it wasn't perfect.
What is perfect?
Yeah,
Tom Brady isn't even perfect. He lost last year.
Yeah, no, I know. He's had a golden horseshoe up his ass forever. And Tom, if you listen to this ever, you've had a golden horseshoe up your ass forever. But what
does a golden horseshoe mean? Is that a lucky horseshoe?
A lot of things have gone his way, and he knows it. But he's earned every last bit of it too. He works his ass off, and he's a great person. I love him to death, even though he took my job. But I think that's one thing that I just that was instilled in me from my parents, and they expressed that, and when I was growing up, and I'm just so grateful for the life I've gotten to live, man. I wouldn't trade my life for anybody's life. If you're grateful for everything that you have, man, it's just an easy way to go through life. And I love living in Bend, love the relationships that I have here, love all of it. And for me, it's I don't know. I've seen guys over time that decided they were going to be big time, and big time everybody they came in. Man, that ends poorly.
Yeah,
it doesn't go very well.
No,
and that's
people don't end up liking you.
That's just not how. And that's not how I'm wired. I'd rather talk about skiing and football.
Speaking of that, though, is my next question. And actually, the book is right there. Would you mind grabbing the last book towards you? There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I forgot I had the thing. So this is your dad's book. Up there, yeah. And my next question was actually, so I met with your dad, and he has a mission of teaching parenting with dignity, and this can go on forever. But to sum it up, this is gonna be a hard question. But what specific lesson from him has shaped your life the best?
Oh man, between he and my mom, that's the people that taught me all the important stuff. At least as I viewed all the important stuff. I would say two. That I think are overriding, from Dad that we've used with our own kids and so on. Number one is that you send a continuous message of love to your kids, and they did that with us. That doesn't mean you're permissive by any stretch. A lot of times loving your kids means saying no, and giving them boundaries and bumpers. But as long as they know unequivocally that you have unconditional love for them, then you can share whatever message you need to share. And then the other one I think that is hard as a parent, but is really, really important is that, and Mom and Dad did this with me and my brother. You treat your kids like they're on an 18-year lease.
An 18-year lease.
18-year lease.
Meaning they're not your kids.
Meaning they're not yours. You don't own them. But at the start of it, when they're born, you own all of it. And then each year they take 1/18th ownership in their own life. So by the time they're 9, and we've done this with our own kids, by the time they're 9...
That makes a lot of sense, because when you're a baby, you really don't have any ownership.
When you're a baby...
if you left them out there in the cold, they're dead.
They're dead, right?
It's just over.
And they don't have the ability to make decisions. And you got to keep them from, sticking their finger in the light socket. That makes a lot of sense.
I like that.
Jamming a fork in the
toaster. So 0/18ths from year 1, 0
to 1. But the crazy thing is, by age 9... your kids should make half of their own decisions.
They should, and that makes a lot of sense
too.
So,
and you see, and you give them the easy ones. What do you want to wear today? And so we've seen some interesting outfits come up. You're like, really? You're gonna? Okay, well, yeah, you can wear that to school. Who do you want to spend time with after school? They get to make those decisions. Now, as they grow, until they're 18, you still reserve that parental right to say no on something. But once they're 18, by this math, once they're 18, they make all their own decisions. Now, hopefully, you've developed a relationship with them where they'll come and ask your advice.
Right.
But ultimately, those decisions are theirs, and you can help them through them, and they've got to take ownership. But the important thing in doing that, though, is at an early age, you learn how to make decisions.
One thing I just found absolutely fascinating when I was talking with your dad was a story about when you and Adam were growing up and the way that he kept you guys away from drugs. And it was, I'd love you to jump in here, but you were at a party, and the drill was if there was drugs going around, you would call and ask for a pizza.
Yeah, call the house and order a pizza.
Call the house and order pizza.
Yeah, I only had to use it once.
Okay.
But yeah, called the home number, like, hey, yeah, I'd like a large pepperoni. Address is so and so, and then
by call the house, you mean you call your dad, mom.
Call mom and dad, and the
and you're doing it. So by the way, this is also for the people who listen. This is back in what?
This is pre-cell phones.
This is pre-cell phones. So you're picking up the landline, and you're calling to order a pizza, and you're telling them the address because there's no GPS. Like, we already know the address.
Yeah, no, you couldn't just call an Uber or send them your.
Yeah.
But the rule was that if we used that get out of jail free card, that there was no judgment. That was, if we're calling it now, if we were in that situation, and didn't call and got in trouble, now there were repercussions.
Sure, as there should be.
And but if we were in that situation and we used our get out of jail free card, then we got to come home with no. And I only had to use it one time, and then the rest of the time I just stayed at the party. No, that's
so what did you?
That's actually not true, but it was it was one of those things where both my brother and I, as we were growing up, because of all the decision making that we got to make growing up, we developed a level of trust with our parents where we could kind of go anywhere and do anything as long as we didn't screw up, and neither one of us screwed up very much, so we got a lot of freedom.
What's some advice you'd like to give to, like, if you go back in time and say, hey, there's Drew and he's 18, what would you tell Drew? He's 18.
Oh, it's interesting because I've thought about this quite a bit. And I actually, with all the graduating football players and athletes and then their friends, I've actually kept a file on my phone for the last 6 or 7 years that I call the rules, which is a list of things that I wish I knew when I was 18. I can't share all those with you right now because some of them are a lot of them are not for public view.
Sure.
But the truth is, for me personally, I'm not sure I would go back and change very much, simply because all of those experiences and mistakes have kind of allowed me to be where
molded you.
It's kind of what's allowed me to be here, and I wouldn't change where I am right now for anything in the world. But I think when you're there are a few things.
Can you imagine though, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you now?
I'm 46, almost 47.
So you're 47.
Yeah.
And could you imagine having the mind you have right now when you're 18?
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be dangerous.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, it'd be dangerous.
That's what I think. Like, I'm only 31, and I'd be like, man, if I had this going on when I was 18, I still have so much to learn. Much to learn.
Well, that's why some of the cliches are so true. And one of the truest cliches ever is youth is wasted on the young.
I haven't heard that one.
Youth is wasted on the young.
Okay.
Because if you had the energy and vitality of a 20-year-old with the wisdom of a 60-year-old, dude, you could rule the world.
You could.
You could rule the world.
You could.
But I think some of the things that I share with the boys, just I've divided it up into three. It's like personal, relationship, and financial. One of them, one of the important ones that I didn't come to understand until later is, and after watching friends go through some really hard times in the recession, understand debt, understand what it means, and understand, what that really looks like and how it works.
So what does debt mean?
Depends. In business, if you've got cash flow to support debt, it's the cheapest money you can find. If you're going to tie debt up into an illiquid asset, then you have potential for real trouble. So that's one that I've watched a lot of people go through. But if you have a business that can, with a lot of cushion, can support money and support some debt, and you want to go, build your business, it's way cheaper than private equity, venture capital, going public. It's the cheapest money you can find, especially interest rates are still low. So, and then there's, tax benefits to it also. But you have to understand that. Like if you're going to tie debt into an illiquid asset, now that can be the anchor around your neck that drags you down. And that's what happened to a lot of people in the recession. If you have a business that has the cash flow to support it, then by all means, it's the cheapest money you can find to grow your business, and if you can justify it. But you just need to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I tell the boys is live beneath your means.
That's really good advice.
That's
very good advice. I mean, you've probably seen it so much in the NFL.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
how many teammates did you see that would just? I don't know. Do you know of teammates?
Oh yeah, no,
people that went bankrupt.
Just a ton of them.
Yeah.
And it you see somebody that signs for a 6th round draft pick rookie and shows up with a brand new car with $20,000 rims and all of that. You're like, well, you just spent your entire first year salary, and don't understand, don't understand that they got a tax bill coming. They're not getting good advice, and
there's likelihood they could get hurt,
or just and so I mean the simplest ones. I tell the boys, hey, look, you know what? Used cars are great.
They are.
Used cars are great. Go buy something that's 5 years old. Somebody else took the depreciation already. It's going to be 90% as good as the car you're going to buy brand new off the lot. And guess what? You can sell it in 5 years and you only lost like 5% of it. You drive it off the lot,
it's been able to let your ego take that hit, though.
Yeah, it is. And, everybody wants the shiny new thing.
Everybody wants a bling bling.
Yeah,
all that stuff,
all of that stuff. But I've actually taken that, and when I talk to them, I tell them flip that on its head. Let your ego be, man, I'm way smarter than those guys. I'm not doing that, right?
Right.
And one of the pitfalls that happens that people fall into is that they think the banks are their friends, right? And so you go sit down to get a loan. That bank office.
That's a big pitfall, by the way.
That
bank's your friend.
That bank officer is going to try to loan you as much money as he thinks you could possibly qualify for.
Right. All of a sudden, $1 million home is doable, right?
Yeah, exactly.
When really a $400,000 home should have been what you got.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is not in your best interest. And one of the pieces of advice that I gave them when they're dealing with banks, for example, when you go in to apply for a loan, the first 2 banks that you go into should be fact-finding expeditions. You should go in and know going in the door that you're at the end of the conversation, you're going to say thank you very much and walk out. Mm-hmm. But you're going to use that to learn, right? So you go. That's
some good advice.
And so
it's just going to be no matter what you're leaving.
No matter what,
no matter what you're leaving, you're saying thank you so much, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We're going to be in touch.
The first two, and you go in. And what you're going to get out of that is you're going to get a lot of feedback about your credit worthiness, about what you can do, about where interest rates are, and how flexible they can be. Because one of the most powerful words in the entire English language is no.
Yeah.
When you walk into a bank and you tell a banker no, they're going to chase you to the door and try to get you back in, and then they're going to chase you forever. And next thing you know, you're going to know what their best offer is. And so, you walk into...
Same with cars, by the way.
Same with cars.
Actually,
yeah,
same with anything.
Yeah, same with anything. I mean, shoot, that's how I ended up married to my wife. She said no a lot, and next thing you know, I'm trapped. Just kidding. Not really. But it's a very happy marriage. We've been married for 26 years. But
everybody says yes all the time.
Yeah, no. She told me no a few times, and next thing you know, I couldn't chase her hard enough.
Well, no is the thing that makes people want what they can't have, and the same goes in business. So if you say no to a car dealership, you say no to a bank, you say no to a realtor, all of a sudden they want you because they can't have you, and you get that lowest thing. But that also goes for time. If with your property, anybody's property, if you have property and somebody decides to build on your property, you immediately will take all your time and effort to make sure that they don't take any of your property away, like any of that size, right?
Yeah, right?
But when people decide to take away your time, when they ask you, hey, can you help with this project? Can you help with this? When you have that, why we're so quick to say yes, but that's the only thing we can't buy back is our time.
Exactly.
We can't buy back time, yet we always say yes to it. So that's why I like your point of no is the most powerful word, because that works when it comes to your goddamn time.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I've done, because I get pulled in a lot of different directions, and which is almost always good. I mean, it's always good stuff. It's always stuff that I want to do. But one of the I've made it a mantra to always be truthful. But sometimes I'll say no. I'll just say sorry. I have a prior commitment.
Right.
And that prior commitment might be that I just want to have dinner with my wife that night.
That's a commitment.
It's a commitment.
Yeah.
So I don't have to explain.
Yeah.
Just, and
You got to go have dinner with a woman that told you no.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want her to tell me no anymore.
And what was she doing saying no to Drew Bledsoe? Did she have any idea?
She has really good family, so she was saying no because she should have. So, no, but it's and so yeah. So I share some of those pieces of advice with the boys, probably the biggest piece of advice, and this isn't business related, but the biggest piece of advice that I give them, that's the most important, and I hit it really hard, is that the most important decision that they will make in their life is their spouse. If you get that one right, everything else is pretty easy.
But that is a business decision.
Yeah, it can be.
Think about it. I mean, if you're a business owner, you come home and you're talking to your wife.
Yeah, you are. I mean, but it's
and if she's a money-driven person,
yeah,
right. All of a sudden, you can get different. Instead of doing what's right for you, it's like, well, what's going to get me?
Well, that's what I mean. It's like
what's going to get me a convertible?
No, if that relationship is the right relationship, then your life's going to be fine, and nothing else is going to matter. Because if you got the right relationship, yeah, you can live wherever, drive whatever, be wherever, and you're still going to be happy. If you pick the wrong one, I mean, now you got Jeff Bezos, right? Mm-hmm. You can be the wealthiest man in the world, and your life's going to be kind of shitty, and you're going to be looking for other options.
Or you keep on thinking if you make more money, it'll become better.
Yeah, or
or
you know what, we'll just have kids, and that'll make everything fine.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
right, and that's probably the biggest piece of advice I give the boys when they're young. Make sure you get that relationship decision right.
Well, do you have follow-up advice to that?
Oh, always, So I tell them to trust their friends. If they're in a bad relationship, they got to trust their friends.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. Is like, because the main piece of advice is pick your right spouse.
Yeah.
How do you pick the right spouse?
Oh, well, yeah. I told them if they think they're right and they're ready to get married, they have to wait at least a year.
That's good advice.
Yeah. You think you're right? Okay. If you're really right, she'll wait another year.
What about moving in?
Oh, you should probably. Well, I don't want to get into a religious discussion, but
no, either.
I think it's great advice to live together for at least a year before you even decide to get married.
I agree.
Yeah, and my wife and I did. I had to go sit down with her. She was raised in a very, very Catholic family, and wanted to move out and live with me in Boston before we were even engaged. I had to go sit down and ask her dad, which was difficult.
Before you were engaged.
Before we were even engaged.
So you're asking not for her hand in marriage, but for her hand in living with you.
Hand in living with me before we were even engaged.
Oh man, that's making my skin crawl.
Yeah,
oh God.
Thankfully he was thankfully he was very, very kind and.
How old were you?
I was at that point. I was 22.
So you were a senior in high school. Or you just got drafted to
No,
the
it was after. So my first year in New England, I was 21.
Okay.
And then it was my second year.
Okay.
It was my second year. So, yeah.
So you proved yourself by that point.
Well, I think he's a special person, and he unfortunately passed away 10 years ago, but he I think he trusted that my intentions were good. But man, it was uncomfortable. But yeah, I would advise anybody, unless your religion prohibits it, live together for at least a year. Figure out if you actually really do like this person, because that passion comes and goes. At the end of the day, you gotta like the person.
What's your opinion on mentorship?
I think mentorship is one of the most important things that anybody can do.
I agree.
From a professional and personal level, whether you're the mentor or the mentee, that relationship is mutually beneficial and one of the most important things you can do.
I agree.
If you're and I've been so fortunate. I have some amazing mentors. And one of the things I would tell young people that are going off into the world of business and into the rest of their lives, man, you'd be amazed at what people will tell you if you just ask.
Right?
They'll give
That's
you,
what I'm finding too.
Yeah,
Like
they'll-
you can, like I've gone up to the CEO of G5 and just be like, "Hey Dan, I'm wondering about this, and that," and he could charge me thousands of dollars in consulting because basically G5 is a giant mazama.
Yeah.
He just told me.
Yeah. No, you just go ask them. Like, oh yeah, here, let me tell you about it.
Yeah.
And they'll give you the answers to the test before the test arrives.
Right.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But instead of test, it's life.
Yeah, it's life, and it's your business, and
Yeah.
and you know what I've found is I'll go to them with an idea, and you know, in a few cases like, well, no, I think that's a bad idea, but in most cases what they'll say is like, well, that's a good idea, but if you do it this way, and this way, it's going to work better.
So that's a really good mentor. What do you think? So I've talked to a lot of people when I'm like, hey, because I have the same opinion as you. And the thing is that, believe it or not, do you know Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yeah.
So he's actually, he thinks mentorship is a bunch of bullshit, which I disagree with. But all I'm saying is that there is people that disagree.
Well, Gary's a Jets fan, so he's fundamentally wired crazy. Yeah.
Right? So with mentors, I have a few in town, a couple in Chicago, and they've all helped me big. One of my biggest is Preston, the owner of 5 Talent, and he helps me a lot. Dan Hoven's given me a lot of advice with G5. But I'll have people that say, okay, yeah, bud, that's great, but how do I get a mentor? Do I just go up and ask? I'm like, no. You don't say, hey, Drew, would you mind being my mentor? You got so much shit on your plate, but would you mind coaching a little bit over here? And you'd be like, how do I get out of this? Instead, I could say to Drew or Preston or Dan, just send a text just being like, or a call like, hey, I was curious, I'm looking on hiring this person, and I wasn't really quite sure this is what they're for, or I'm looking on what I should do when it comes to making my balance sheet being able to support me for the next 3 years. Where should I be looking at the cash flow percentage? And then all of a sudden you're just like, oh, this, and that. And then you do that again in a week or 3. And then you do it again. And all of a sudden it's just this unofficial thing. You just don't ask.
Well,
you don't ask for this. You just kind of...
That works very well, and then the other the thing that I found that honestly works extremely well is actually getting a group together. So it's like YPO, if you're familiar with YPO.
Right. Yeah.
You put together a group like that, and then you set up more of a structure. You know, it can't be more than like 10 or 12 people, but you do that because there's in order to get real advice and really get deep into the weeds, there needs to be some trust and confidentiality. And if you have a group that then you meet with, you know, we did this and we haven't met for a little while now.
I do this with Opportunity Knocks.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Preston is the facilitator.
Oh, that's where I was at today with Rod Ray.
Cool.
Was at Opportunity Knocks.
Yeah, and we basically said everybody, this is all confidential, and we get into the weeds.
Yeah, no, but you need to have that, because otherwise, you know, in a one-on-one setting you can trust people, but you know, you want to be able to trust that confidentiality to really lay yourself bare.
Right.
And you know, so if you put together a peer group of like-minded individuals, you probably need to be in. One of the rules for ours was that you couldn't have 2 people in the same industry, because then there's some withholding because you don't want to give your competitor something.
That's what ours is too. Yeah.
Yeah, but you sit down and you share ideas. You talk about your business. You talk about what you're doing, and
these organizations, by the way, are in almost every community.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like every one that has like over probably 50,000 people. But like almost every one, there's one of these type of things. They're called different things, but just Google search it. Like look for like mentor group or collaborations, stuff like that, and YPO in your town, and you'll be able to find something.
Yeah, it's the most valuable thing you can do if you're going to be in business.
Joining Opportunity Knocks is probably the most valuable. The amount of stuff that I've learned and the amount of things, the pitfalls that I was able to avoid because I had 9 other guys that have already been there and girls that have been there and did that.
Yeah, it's mutual mentorship, you know, and you know, and also try to be the dumbest guy in the group. You know, I mean, that was my goal, and so I just like, man, I get in there, and so I was sort of the mascot because I was the football guy, but I was in the room, you know, the group that we have, fabulously smart people, and it's kind of fun to throw yourself into the deep end and see if you can swim with them.
Right.
And but you sit there and everybody's throwing their business ideas out. Well, even if you're not talking about your business, you're watching somebody talk about their business, and there are takeaways from all of it, that are really interesting. So yeah, do that.
That speaks to your humbleness
Form a
too.
group.
That speaks to your humbleness too. You're to me like try to be the dumbest guy in the room. That's another way of looking at it, is like hire smarter people to go around you and be able to have the ego to deal with that.
Yeah.
And which is why Double Bag has been successful. I am so excited whenever I have team members, which is all the time, figure out stuff that I didn't think of.
Oh, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Oh,
You guys are so awesome. You figured this stuff
yes.
out. I think I'm credit all the time. Like you're the reason why we got to where we are. It's amazing.
One of the biggest hallmarks of real confidence is knowing that you don't know very much, and asking
Self-awareness,
and asking for help.
Yep.
And honestly, it's funny because if you, I'm pretty like as what's his name? I was Ron White, one of my favorite comedians. He goes, I'm smart, but you can't prove it on paper, right? Like I don't have any fancy diplomas, but to me, if I were to give myself any credit on this front, is that I do think that the smartest thing that I have done and continue to do is to try to get in a good room or get next to people and ask a ton of questions and just see how much I can learn.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, by doing that, I've actually stolen an education from some really, really brilliant people.
I'm sure they'd lend it to you anyway.
Well, it's right. But
people love to teach.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're,
it's in our DNA, I believe.
Well, if you have somebody that actually is willing to learn, then yes.
Yeah.
If people are asking you questions just because they want to talk and tell you how smart they are, then that's not effective. But
the act of listening just to hear what you're going to say next.
Yeah, and then exactly.
Yeah.
And it's what's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Dale.
Dale Carnegie. Yeah, yeah. Worst title on a really important book ever.
Oh, so 70 million sold.
Yeah. Well, he was the one that taught Charles Manson how to recruit those girls. So obviously he knows.
Did he really?
Oh yeah, you watched the Charles Manson deal. That was how he learned how to put together his cult, was reading Dale Carnegie.
So Dale didn't go out personally. Then.
No, Dale didn't. No,
No.
Yeah, I think Dale was dead by then. But
yeah.
but no, that Manson, he used all of Carnegie's techniques to recruit his cult.
So use it for good, not evil, everyone.
Yes, please use it only for good. Don't use it for evil. But that's one of the things that he says. You ask questions and then actually listen to the answer. Mm-hmm. Man, it's amazing what people will tell you. It's pretty cool.
What about Double Back? This guy right here, are you most proud of?
Mm-hmm. What I'm most proud of. That's a good question. What I'm most proud of with this is that when we set out to do this, we actually wanted it to be a real and authentic business that we started from the ground up, and that's what it's become. We really wanted it to. This was not designed to be a vanity project where we're just going to slap our name on a bottle and throw a bunch of money at something. We actually wanted to build a real business around a product that we thought would compete on a world stage, and we've actually accomplished that. Yeah, that part's been really, really fun, and part of what makes it fun is that it's actually been hard. It's been difficult. I'm actually on airplanes a lot, going out and meeting the people and selling it.
You're saying New York City next week. Is that
New York City for a day, Boston for a day, and then I come back and I'm back on the road. But Zuckerberg actually has a cool quote that I'm sure you've seen. He goes, "Don't equate fun with happiness." Right? Which
I have, yeah.
Which is to me is a great quote, because most of the things that have brought me the greatest happiness in my life were actually pretty hard. And with this, that's where this is. It's actually been difficult and long and arduous and bumpy and all that stuff. But the fact that we've actually now, accomplished what our vision was, which was to build a business around a world-class product from my hometown, with something that we started with bare ground to make. Man, that's a real cool sense of accomplishment, and I absolutely love it. And now we're reshaping our vision and deciding what we want to be when we grow up. But we're not sitting still. We're not just going to, hey, we got a good wine, keep buying it. We actually want to continue to grow, but do it in a sustainable and positive way that's beneficial to to our town of Walla Walla, beneficial to our customers, and beneficial to our business. So we're not sitting still with it, but getting to this point has been really, really, really cool. And then the other part that honestly that just the pure fun part of it, for me, is actually sitting down with a bottle of wine with my wife, and I really like it. Like we sit down and I'm like, shit, that's good wine.
It is good wine.
And
I was drinking that like water. This
yeah,
whole podcast.
I know we need 2 bottles of wine for the podcast. But it's like to be able to do something and you're like you produce a product, and then at the end of the day, like okay, well it's a business, it's doing well, all that stuff. But yeah, we sit down with a bottle of our wine, and I've had a couple of experiences over the past years where we'll be at an event or at our house or somebody else's house or whatever, and I'll be walking around with a glass of wine, and I'll have a sip and be like, oh shit, that's good. What? Oh, that's ours. Hell yes, right? And it's
that's great.
So that part from from just a fun and enjoyment standpoint, liking and being extremely proud of what you do is super awesome.
It's fulfillment.
It is. It's fulfillment, and
to be happy with that.
Plus, it's just cool, I mean,
of course.
When we launched our first vintage, we had it in a bottle in 2007, and my wife and I, or 2007 vintage that we got it bottled in 2009, and we hadn't released it yet. And so we came home and we had 600 cases of wine, not that much wine, but 600 cases of wine. We sat down at the table, and so we're like, okay, well, it's the first time we get to do this, crack a bottle of our own wine and share it at the table. And we were both sitting there, and we're like, man, I hope people buy this. I hope people buy it, but we both had the same thing. But, if they don't, boy, we got a lot of wine to drink.
You got a lot of wine, yeah.
And I like it. So,
yeah.
So we're good. So, to be able to build a business around something that you really, truly enjoy and are passionate about. I tell people all the time now that I've been able to go my whole life now, and I've never had a real job, and I want to keep it that way.
So how can people can find and follow you? And
Doubleback Drew? Thanks, man. No, I appreciate it, and I really appreciate supporting us and doing this. But doubleback.com or BledsoeFamilyWinery.com.
Okay.
The sister business is Bledsoe Family Winery. And that's designed to be a little more accessible to more people. Not very many people want to go spend $100 on a bottle of wine.
Yeah, it's really good wine though, by the way.
It's really
$100 goes a long way.
We think it's a hell of a value.
Yeah.
And then the Bledsoe Family Winery wines are they're not cheap wines. It's we're like $28 to $55 a bottle.
It's also good wine,
but still good juice. But go to either of those.
Is that the bottle, the glass right there?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we got. So we our second label goes into these, which is more old world. Really important to note with this bottle, though, that not only is it kind of funky cool, it's also a liter of wine, so it's more wine. This is 750 milliliters. This is 1 liter.
I forgot all about that. Yeah, you do get more wine on this
so
thing.
There's an extra cup.
And you get this thing that, check how cool this is, right?
Yeah,
now
so
you
can
have a water bottle, after.
Water bottle, people use it for olive oil. They use it for all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah, olive oil would be good.
But yeah, either one of those websites you can go to doubleback.com or BledsoeFamilyWinery.com, or if you can't remember that, just type Drew Bledsoe wine and it'll pop up.
Well, Drew, thanks so much for being here, man. It's been
Yeah,
a pleasure.
but I appreciate you, man. I'm a super fan of your business and what you're building and what you've done, and it's really cool that you have your business here in Bend, Oregon.
Yeah.
One of the stories I tell about you all the time that I hope you're okay with me sharing, but one of the coolest super bendy things that you do is that you have powder day hours at your office. So if there, what's the rule? 6 inches?
4.
4 inches. 4 inches. You don't have to start your workday till noon. Is that right?
Yeah, noon or 1. I mean, whenever
Yeah,
you get in.
yeah.
It just,
And
you
then
know,
you
we're
just-
not a restaurant, so
Yeah,
we
then
just
you
work till
late.
7
yeah.
or 8.
Yeah, you just work later.
Till your job's
I
done.
love it, man. That's
Yeah.
cool. It's a very Bend thing to do.
Yeah.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming, Drew.
Yeah, you got it.